Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. The Tough Girl podcast is sponsorship and ad-free thanks to the monthly financial support of patrons. To find out more about supporting the Tough Girl podcast and becoming a patron, please check out Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast. All patrons will get their name on a dedicated patrons page on the Tough Girl website. All female patrons $5 and above are invited to join the closed Facebook group, the Tough Girl Tribe. Today, I'm absolutely delighted that we're going to be speaking to Sian Lewis, who is an award-winning travel and outdoor journalist, blogger and presenter. Sian's award-winning blog, thegirloutdoors.com, is all about finding happiness outside and promoting easy adventures that beginners can try.
So my name is Sian Lewis and I'm a travel and outdoor writer and blogger, and I've been writing about the great outdoors for about a decade now, and I cover lots of things: travelling, camping, different sports, anything that gets you outdoors and into the fresh air. But my angle is usually quite beginner friendly approaches to trying things like camping and swimming and travelling, and I mainly write for young women. I've got my own blog, The Girl Outdoors, which again is aimed at encouraging people to get outside and try new things and find the confidence to give new sports and new activities a go. And I really love the outdoors myself, and writing about it is a really nice way to encourage myself to get out more and more. So whenever I can, I like to be out and about, getting active and getting out in the wild world, really.
Oh, that's so fantastic. So tell me, when you were growing up, was the outdoors a big part of your life? Did you come from an outdoorsy family? You know, what was life like for you?
I didn't have a hugely outdoorsy family. We used to do a lot of walking and hiking. My dad is still really into walking. So we go off on long walks with him. And we lived in London when I was small. So I think that contrast of living in a really built up city and in a city life, and then getting out into beautiful places, into forests, into national parks, has always really stayed with me. And actually that it's really easy when you have a bit of free time to just pick up and go and end up somewhere completely different, where you can be in a much more kind of in an open landscape and get some fresh air and just escape from city life. So I remember that really clearly. And we used to go camping too. And I remember that even when I was really little, the best thing ever was getting to set up a tent in the back garden and play at camping. But we didn't do loads of sports. I never did things like, I had a bike and stuff, but I wasn't really in a massively sporty family. But I was definitely in a family where I was encouraged to do whatever I wanted, which I think is really important, especially when you're a young girl growing up. But it was more at university when I realised that there were a million amazing clubs and different things I could go and try. And I just got so overexcited when I realised that suddenly I could do anything I wanted and learn to surf and learn to climb mountains and get out on my bike, because you have a lot more free time at uni, I guess. So that was when I suddenly felt like I could go off and explore and try loads of new things.
So where did you go to university and what were you studying?
I went to University of Bath and I studied Italian for no real reason, mainly because I wanted to go to uni, and I realised that if you studied Italian, you got to go and live in Italy for a year. So I decided that was a very clever idea. So that was when I went to study. But actually, while I was there, I ended up working on the university newspaper, which I think for a lot of people is how they get into journalism, because you get to have a good go at working on a kind of almost like a pretend newspaper or a magazine and try out kind of what it's like to work on an editorial team. And I absolutely loved it. So after I finished university, I went and did a master's in journalism. And while I was there, I started my blog. And that was kind of the beginning of my career path.
When you were at university, what sort of clubs and societies were you joining?
So I just went around the Freshers Week and suddenly realised that there were so many exciting sports and activities that I'd never tried. I guess, I was only 18 and I suddenly thought, why have I never learned to surf? Why have I never been mountaineering? There's so many things I could do. So I basically signed up to all of them. My grades definitely suffered for the first year. But so I immediately joined the surfing society, and I'd never surfed before. I don't think I was even that good a swimmer. And that was a great introduction to just a sport I really wanted to do. And we used to go out and just get in the sea all year round. And I'm still not a great surfer, but I just absolutely fell in love with it. And that was quite a good example of being a complete beginner at something, but realizing that you don't have to be amazing at a sport to really love it, and that you can kind of grow your confidence quite easily. And getting out in the sea, getting better at swimming, and just going surfing regularly with friends was a really good introduction to kind of outdoors pursuits in general. And I realized that I could do these things, and I could get out in nature really often, and feel really confident in what could be like maybe quite a challenging environment. So that was just a great way to learn to surf. And I also started to do a lot of hiking. I started to do camping with friends. Just anything I could do, really. Any weekend I had free, I was always wanted to be outdoors. Did things like skydiving. I basically signed up to everything, and that was the beginning of just wanting to be outdoors all the time.
Yeah. No, I love this. Like, this is the great thing about when you do go to university, you get access to all these clubs and societies, and you can go surfing, go hiking, go camping.
Yeah.
Learn these amazing skills. And then let's talk about, so you joined the newspaper, found journalism, found your passion, ended up doing a master's in it. And then tell us more about starting up your blog, The Girl Outdoors. Was this purely a passion project? What was the reason behind it?
Yeah, sure. So when I was studying journalism, I mean, this was 10 years ago, but I think it was already very clear that journalism was going towards, to all being online. And that's very much what's happened. And I kind of thought, right, well, maybe it would be cool to have, I had a look around for kind of what I wanted was a website for young women like me who weren't kind of into maybe like real extreme sports, or who weren't athletes, who weren't very good, who weren't going to be professional kind of outdoors women who just really like getting outdoors, and especially something for younger women. And there just wasn't really much out there back then. That has really changed now. And I did want to start my own blog to have a bit of a kind of an online presence, and to practice writing and to write about what I really loved. So it just kind of made sense, and I decided to start my blog. And once I'd started it, it was a brilliant virtuous circle, because I wanted to write more about getting outdoors. I would get outdoors more, and then I'd write about it, and then I'd go, oh, great, well, I need to get outdoors more and write more for my blog. And I just loved it from the get-go, which I think is important. I think if you're going to get into something like that, if you really truly love what you're writing about, it makes it a lot easier. It's a passion, so you don't kind of sit there and go, oh God, I need to write something new for my blog. It's just such a joy, and it still is. So yes, I've been doing that for 10 years, and I can't quite believe, but that was how I started it. And if I look back now at some of the early blog posts, they are really funny. But I just used to write anything I liked about what I was up to or where I was going, and I just really, really enjoyed it. And I've just been doing it ever since, really. Last year, I turned my kind of blog concept into a book, which is out now too. And that was actually quite different, kind of taking that idea and reshaping it into a long form book. But that was a new challenge, which was quite good, because there's another way to kind of keep the passion alive for it. But yeah, still going strong.
You must have been such a pioneer, like in this space, like back in 2009. I mean, was there much stuff for women who like to get outdoors? Like I can't even. What was I doing? I was working, so I literally had no concept of what was going in the outdoor adventure space.
There definitely were, and there was some long-standing, the Surf Girl magazine. I think Cooler was around then, which is now online, but that was a really cool magazine. There were plenty of magazines that maybe weren't female specific, but had that kind of let's get outside angle, TGO magazine. But what I wanted was a magazine I was in my early 20s, or a magazine or a blog or something that just was a bit more, matey and relaxed, and not trying to just be too pro, really. And I still think actually in kind of extreme sports and the outdoors, a lot of what you see, especially in kind of things like advertising, it does still look really slick and pro, and you see all this kind of stuff about amazing athletes, and they're so cool. But I just think there's not always that representation for the normal woman who has a job and has a social life, and also just wants to get outdoors and just for the joy of it. So that was kind of what I was looking for. But I do think now it's really changed, and there are tons of amazing websites and plenty of people on social media who are getting outdoors as much as they can and loving it, with kids or around their job or just in their local area. And I think that has really, really changed now, which I love to see. I'm really happy to see that there's this huge community of amazing women who just have, that's their passion. But yeah, so it has changed a lot, but it's just lovely to watch it change.
When did it start changing for you in terms of the blog, in terms of, did you turn it into a full-time job? Was that like sort of your goal originally, or how did it evolve?
Yeah, well, it was never really my goal. I just enjoyed it, and I did want to work in outdoor journalism or travel journalism, and it was quite a good a bit of a CV as well, because it showed my writing skills and it showed what I really loved. And it led to my second job in journalism. I worked for Countryfile at the BBC, and that was quite a useful tool to show them that I did really love the outdoors and hiking, and that was my passion. So it was. I do think, in general, it's always a good idea to, whatever you're into in the outdoors, if you're into, for example, outdoor photography, having a good website that shows what you do and what you love is really useful to show if you're trying to get into this kind of this kind of way of working. Show what you do is great. So I used it for that. And I never really thought it would be a full-time business. And I still do my own freelance journalism. So I do a lot of travel writing. I do kit reviews for newspapers and magazines. Yes, I travel a lot for work. So I'd say about half of my working life is my blog, and about half of it is other stuff. I also now edit a magazine called Active Traveller, which is an annual magazine. So a few days a week, I'm actually in an office working on a magazine. So, which is quite nice as well, because I think it's quite nice to have that mix. I do a few days in an office, a few days working from home, and then I also get time to get outdoors every week. So it's quite a nice balance. But yeah, no, I've never done the blog full time, and I actually think that's quite nice because you don't get overwhelmed by it or start to resent it. I always really love working on it, and it's just always kind of something that it's just my passion project, I guess. I think it can be quite tough if you want to turn something like that into your full-time job. It can be an exhausting road trying to make something like that pay all the time. And I think actually having a few different jobs, the way loads of us do, I think now at our age, but this kind of generation now, it's very normal to do lots of different things and maybe work on something that you're really into on the side of a job. But I actually think that's quite a nice way to work, and we're quite lucky that we get to mix it up. So yeah.
No, that's fantastic. And I agree so much with what you're saying. And I think the words that's coming out is actually, it sounds like you've got such a nice balance between your passion projects, the full-time working on the magazine, doing what you love, and still getting to do like the kit reviews and do the travel and go to festivals. And
yeah, exactly. I like it. And I think it's quite nice because you don't get too wrapped up in one big project that way.
What piece of content are you most proud of producing for the Girl Outdoors?
Oh, that's such a hard one. So my favourite, I like writing kind of either first-person travel pieces or advice pieces that I really hope are going to help people. So I did a piece actually that was one of my favourites, which was basically about how to go travelling on your own, solo travel, which I think can be a big it's a big step to take confidence-wise, which I totally understand, and I still find solo travel challenging but also really exciting. And I asked lots of fellow kind of female outdoors women for advice, and just got such lovely advice. And it's a really nice piece that I always look back on fondly, and it's done really well as well. I think readers really like it, and I think it was a nice one because it reminded me that there's loads of amazing women out there who are confidently exploring on their own, and sometimes hearing from fellow from other people that they're doing it, is you just kind of remember that in your heart when you feel a bit scared. And it's just nice to remember that lots of people are out there exploring on their own. So I always really love that article. And in terms of what does kind of well with readers, I think I've noticed that people really like reading things about wild swimming and wild camping and those little adventures that maybe if you've never done them before, you might look for a bit of advice. For example, I don't know, if you wanted to go bivvy bag camping, you might have a quick read of how to do that or how to kind of set up your bivvy bag. But then you can go out and it's an easy, cheap little adventure you can fit into a busy life. Or articles like that always do really well, and that makes me really happy because that's exactly what I like as well. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to work on at the moment, is fitting in lots of content of kind of inspiring little adventures that you can fit in easily, that are cheap and quick to go off and do, and you can fit around your life.
Yeah, I'd love for you to share some more of those like little adventures that you've done that have fitted around your life. What have you been up to recently?
Sure. Well, because I have a working week, which I didn't, and we've all got busy things going on in our lives. People have kids, we have friends, we have social obligations, we have work obligations. So I think this idea of kind of that kind of message of, oh, quit your job and go traveling around the world, it's amazing, and I think that's really cool. But if you can't do that, then I think there's also a lot to be said for just fitting in the outdoors when and where you can. So I do a lot of I live in Bristol, so I live in a city, and I just love escaping and hopping over to the Brecon Beacons and going camping or wild camping in the mountains. Quite often I'll take my bivy bag, and a friend and I will just head over to the mountains, maybe even after work, and climb a mountain and sleep in a bivy bag and wake up and head back down and, do something else with the weekend. And I think that's actually probably one of my favourite adventures. So this weekend we went wild camping near a river. So we woke up and all just got in the river for a swim, and it was, as you know, it's been super hot. And yeah, it wasn't a crazy adventure, but it was just one of my favorites. And I actually think, although I travel a lot for work, so I go quite far, the adventures that I always remember and think of really fondly are the little ones that are near home, where it's all very easy and relaxed, and you're in nature and you don't need a lot of gear. You have a tent or a bivy bag and a swimming costume, and that's all you need to have a really, really good time on your own or with your friends. So yes, that's what I'm always like planning, and I like planning them as well because you can fit them in around other stuff.
What do you think has been your biggest challenge in the outdoors?
Yeah, definitely big mountains and dealing with altitude, because I find that I really, really love heading into the kind of big mountain ranges, but I do find altitude quite an interesting challenge. So the first time I kind of encountered it was when I climbed Mount Kenya, and it's just so intense when you're doing a multi-day attempt on a summit and you're kind of getting up at the crack of dawn and trying to battle through altitude, kind of the side effects of it. I think that's quite an intense feeling. And then last summer I spent 6 weeks living in the Himalayas, set up a base camp, and just hiking into really high mountain ranges, incredibly remote areas. And I think you just have to be really careful that you're looking after your body, because you're putting under a lot of stress. And just dealing with altitude I think is quite interesting, and you just need to be quite careful, but the rewards are incredible, because being up in really high mountain ranges is just so beautiful, and it feels so removed from civilization, and you feel like you're in a really wild place. And there's something so lovely about conquering a mountain. It's just kind of like a simple goal. And I think that's something where I'm trying to also improve my skill set, learn more about navigation and self-sufficient hiking and camping for longer periods of time. That's the great thing about the outdoors. There's always so much more to learn. So yeah, I think that my biggest challenges are probably attempting big mountain climbs.
Tell us more about the Himalayas and your 6 weeks over there. What was that like, and why were you over there? What were you doing?
Yeah, so I do volunteering with the British Exploring Society, who take young people on really kind of like life-changing trips into really remote parts of the world. So they go to the Amazon, to the Himalayas, to really incredible places. And I work as a volunteer leader, so a team of leaders will look after these young people. And actually the young people were incredible on my trip. They were so capable and amazing. I learned a lot from them as well. But the idea is that you go off and just kind of, it's quite a big challenge. So we headed up into the Indian Himalayas and set up a base camp that I think, if I remember rightly, was above 5,000 meters. So it was really, really high. We had to acclimatize for weeks on the way to base camp. And then we set off to climb quite often unclimbed peaks, which was really, really cool. And a lot of it's about just working as a team and making sure everybody's happy and healthy and living in an incredibly remote place. And it was a great lesson as well for me, and how little you need day by day, and how you can live without creating a lot of trash, which is also something I think that we're all working on a lot these days, making sure that you're kind of a bit more self-sufficient. It was an incredible challenge, and it was so much fun, but it was also pretty exhausting.
How long have you been volunteering for?
So that was my first big trip with British Exploring Society, but I do quite a lot of different bits and bobs of volunteering in lots of different forms myself. But this was the first kind of expedition, as they call them, that I'd done with them. But yeah, it was amazing.
That's super cool. Have you done stuff like the Duke of Edinburgh Award? Have you got like your mountain leader qualification? Have you got anything like that?
No, I have nothing like that. I'm currently doing a wilderness first aid course, just because I feel like I'd like to know more about that, and just have a bit more confidence in. I have a first aid kit, and I'm always thinking, actually, I don't really know how to use this. I grew up abroad. I grew up in southern Spain, so sadly, I didn't have a chance to do the Duke of Edinburgh Award, but I think it's incredible. I give out the gold awards sometimes to Duke of Edinburgh participants, and hearing them and hearing the confidence that they've gained from doing their qualification, it makes me think that's such a valuable skill to have before going off and doing a career. Having that confidence in your own ability in the outdoors is amazing. So I definitely recommend courses like that. But sadly, I didn't get a chance to do it myself.
I'd love to hear more about your book as well. So your book came out in 2018, and you explain more about like the concept. What are the different things that you cover off in the book, and what you're most proud of about it?
Yeah, the book, it was such a joy doing the book. I basically went to Bloomsbury and said, hey, I have this blog and I think it would be a nice book concept. And they were really on board, which was amazing. And I think the whole point of the book is that it's just a useful, kind of friendly companion for anyone who really wants to get outdoors more, or travel more, or just get out and get exploring, but maybe lacks a bit of confidence or isn't quite sure how to try certain things. So it's got everything really. It's got introductions to things like wild camping, wild swimming, but there's also a section on kind of well-being and getting out in nature, cooking outdoors, and then there's a big section on how to travel alone, how to maybe do long-term travels if you're planning a gap year or something like that, solo travel, volunteering. And then there's a whole section at the front which is dedicated to trying new sports and activities that you might be keen to try, but you're not really sure how they work. So if, for example, you've never been skiing before, it's a bit, these kind of sports where you think, oh, that's cool, but none of my mates do. I'm not really sure how it works. Climbing is another one I think people are maybe a bit intimidated to try. And actually, there's some amazing communities and ways to try all of them, quite often closer to you than you think. So it's just a bit of an introduction to getting out and gaining confidence, and just getting that little bit of extra info to give you a nudge in the right direction.
I mean, one of the things that you've talked about there is having the confidence, or women lacking the confidence to do these things. Where should women start? How do they start? Like, what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I see it all the time. I get a lot of emails from women, especially from younger women, who really want to do more, more things outdoors, but do feel that they don't have that confidence, or they don't know how to take the first step to get that confidence. And I think that's totally normal and understandable. And I think for me, the advice that I would give is to not kind of run before you can walk, and to take small steps to building that confidence in what you want to try, and you'll kind of build that just a confidence level and that knowledge, and you'll keep improving. And I think really quickly you'll find that you absolutely love it. So for example, if you wanted to try, say, climbing, the best thing to do is to find a course, or maybe a female only group. I know there's one at my local climbing gym that you can go to, which is just for women, female beginners. So there's loads of ways that you can find like a really inclusive, friendly way to learn. And I think arming yourself with a good amount of knowledge is really important. So if, for example, you love to try winter mountaineering, there are fantastic weekend courses you can try where you're going to be shown all of the basics. You're going to be taught all of those kind of fundamentals you need to know, and it's going to give you that good base of confidence, and you can practice those skills until you feel like you can go off and do it on your own. And the more you practice and the more you realize you can do yourself, you'll get that kind of innate confidence level to maybe try it yourself, to go off and try it alone. And I think you'd be astonished at how much you can achieve once you get started. But what you don't want to do is maybe try something too much and scare yourself. So I always go for the kind of get somebody to teach me option, because I love having the basic information and knowing that I'm doing something right, or practicing skills, and then getting out by myself. The other great thing you can do is ask a friend who maybe knows more than you and get them to take you out. So, for example, when I first went wild camping, I would always just get mates. I would just nag my friends who were much more experienced and go camping with them. And I think that's a really good way to make sure you're safe and you're happy and you're comfortable, because I think it is about getting out of your comfort zone, but you don't want to scare yourself silly. It's meant to be fun. I think this idea that maybe at the outdoors is this really gnarly, rugged, tough environment. I think the whole point is it is meant to be really fun. So just making sure it is fun for you is important. If you've never really camped, for example, going wild camping in the pouring rain probably isn't going to be your first starting point. You're probably not going to have a good time. But if you go on a summer's evening and a lovely starry night, and you pick a nice campsite, you're probably going to have a lot more fun and want to go back.
Absolutely. So the title of your book, The Girl Outdoor, is The Wild Girl's Guide to Adventure, Travel and Wellbeing. Tell me a little bit more about sort of wild swimming. When was the first time that you went wild swimming? What was it like? What did you enjoy? What were the things that you didn't like? What did you learn from that experience?
Sure. Well, I've actually been wild swimming my whole life, because my wonderful grandmother was really into swimming, and she was a cold water swimmer before we even called them that. So she used to make me go in the sea with her when I was 5 or 6, and I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. So I think that is probably one of those things where the earlier you start, the less you care about being chilly, because you're just used to it. But so I've been swimming my whole life, and I think wild swimming, I mean, obviously now it it is having a huge surge in popularity. But for me, it was always just swimming or outdoor swimming. But I have absolutely always loved it, and it's something that I will always go back to, time and time again, because it's such an incredible way to get outdoors, and also to kind of find a bit of mindfulness if you're having a busy day or you're feeling a bit stressed. I think being in cold water is just this incredibly relaxing thing that's really, really good for you mentally and physically. And also, I think if you live in a city, you might think, oh, I don't really know where to swim. But there's loads and loads of places that are actually quite close to cities where you can swim in lakes and rivers or get in the sea. And it's also, if you can swim, it's a really easy way to get outdoors. And you can swim really confidently. There's loads of places where you don't have to get out of your depth even, you can just kind of swim on a shallow lake or on a kind of riverbed. So I think it's a very accessible thing as well, although it is something where people do need to kind of practice caution and make sure they're staying safe, because it can be very dangerous in certain places. So that's quite a good example of one where I'd say you need to get a little bit of knowledge, or maybe go to a popular spot and give it a go. But I think it's so rewarding, and I think even people who maybe aren't sure if they like cold water, you can try it in a wetsuit, you can try it in summer, but I think it's absolutely magical.
I was reading a great blog post that you wrote, which was how it feels to try ice swimming Scandinavian style, taking a dip in the ice in Arctic Sweden. I mean, I think I'm starting to shiver just thinking about that and that ice cold water. But could you tell us more about that experience?
So I think I'm right in saying that in Scandinavia, swimming in cold water is really kind of recognised as being very good for you physically. And I believe it's because the understanding is that if you kind of take a quick dip in very cold water, it actually boosts your immune system, and it's meant to be very good for you. And I knew that people also say that after you've been in really icy cold water, you feel very alive, you feel very tingly, you feel great. I've tried it a few times. I tried it in Sweden and I tried it in Greenland in really, really cold kind of ice strewn water, and it is absolutely amazing. You do have to muster up the courage to jump in, but it does feel quite strange, because your body kind of doesn't really know what to hit it, so you almost don't feel cold or hot. You feel your body's just kind of in a little bit of shock, but once you get out, you do feel absolutely amazing. You feel really, really tingly and warm and alive, and it just feels fantastic. So even if you don't stay in for very long, it is great. And you can also try, if you're ever in Scandinavia, they do a really cool thing where you hop in the sauna, get really warm, and then you jump into ice cold water, and then you immediately get back in the sauna, and you do that a few times, and your body just never has time to feel that cold, to be honest. And it is fabulous. So it is worth the plunge, even if just to try it once.
Oh, amazing. Tell me more about cycling. Sort of what sort of cycling have you done?
Sure. I cycle all the time, actually, just to get around. I try and cycle whenever I can and not use my car, just for environmental reasons and fitness reasons. But I mean, I think most people, cycling around a city there's not a lot of joy in that for me. But what I do love is to get out on my road bike or on a mountain bike and just get into wild places. I like road cycling, but increasingly I like to road cycle on quiet little country roads, and there's actually some great guidebooks that are all about finding those kind of peaceful B roads. And I think with cycling, I love walking and hiking, but there's something really, really lovely about kind of rolling along on a bike and kind of attacking hills and then just freewheeling down hills, and it's a really great way to explore. As I said, I live reasonably close to Wales, and the winding roads of Wales are just an absolute joy. If you're on a bike, you can explore the Black Mountains, the Brecon Beacons for a day, and it's just a fabulous way to get out. And cycling was something I was road cycling especially, I was quite intimidated by. And that was another thing where I had a friend who was a much more experienced cyclist, and I basically forced her to take me all the time while I worked on my confidence and worked on my, navigation and fixing my bike skills, which I'm still not very good at. And it's just that thing of getting out and out until you've got that little base of confidence to feel like you can get out alone and you know what you're doing. So I love getting on my bike. I think that's another really good way to, like while swimming or hiking, it's one of those ways to put down your laptop, put down your phone, get out in the natural world and be in the landscape that you're exploring, and get a mood lift and a physical lift. So I absolutely love it. To be honest, there's not many activities that I don't love if they let me get outdoors. I tend to just think I'm a huge fan of them all.
Sometimes the problem is like trying to fit them all in.
Well, I actually think it's really, I'm probably, I don't think I could be one of those athletes who trains all day, every day for one sport that they love. I think I'd get really bored. I think I love the mix. I'm not very good at any of the sports I do, but I love them all so much, and I really like mixing them up. And I think it's quite nice for your body too, because it's a nice way to train your body if you're doing different things every day.
Do you train? Like, I know that sounds weird, but I feel as though you're so active and involved in so many like sort of different sports, and that you're always sort of out and about, whether that is cycling, using your bike to commute, or hiking in the hills, or going out surfing. Are you also are you a member of a gym, or is that not sort of part of your world?
Yeah, I go to the gym all the time. I just don't really write about it much because I feel like it's not really outdoors. I don't know. I'd normally rather be outdoors, but I do find the convenience of having a gym. It is useful if I've just hopped to work or whatever, or I just have an hour in the evening. So I will go to the gym quite a lot, and I try and work on just a good general base fitness, because I find that really easy. If I have to go traveling at a moment's notice to do something like cycling or hiking, it's just good to know that I'm kind of reasonably fit. I also do a lot of yoga. There's a lovely yoga studio near me, and I find that really, really good for stretching and kind of relaxing the muscles that tend to get pretty tight with all the other activities I do. And then what I also do most of the time for kind of keeping fit is I go trail running if I've got the time for an hour or two. I play football very casually, and I go climbing, and those are actually my week in, week out ways of staying fit. And again, I think that shows that I'm not very good at concentrating on one sport. I like lots of different ways to keep fit, but I actually find I get quite antsy if I don't work out most days. So I think even just for my mental health, I find working out really, really helpful, really relaxing. It stops me feeling anxious. It stops me feeling worried about work. I find I sleep a lot better. So it's just as much of a mental as well as physical gain. But I kind of just got to the point where I really need exercise in my life. So I always try and fit in a little bit.
I'm awesome when I'm at home because I can get into such a great routine that I'm like, boom, yes, gym, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, rest days, get my massages in. I'm sort of on fire. When I start traveling or I'm visiting, like if I'm heading down to London or heading down to Bristol or going to different events and I'm out and about, I can really struggle to sort of fit it all in when I'm not in sort of my usual routine. Now, you do a lot of traveling. So how do you stay fit and healthy when you are out and about traveling around the world and doing all the work that you do, which I know is outdoorsy, but do you understand what I'm asking? Like, how are you keeping fit while you're traveling?
Absolutely, and it is a big challenge. And I'm not the best at diet. I have days where I eat really well and days where I just eat chocolate. I'm quite sporadic with eating well. And when you're working out, I think you can get away with it. But when you're traveling, you need to be much more on staying fit, and it is a huge challenge. But the things I have found are really useful are packing my running trainers, because if you're in a city or a new place or just in a country location that you can map, you can figure out some really nice runs. And also, running is actually a really lovely way for me to explore a new place. If I think it's quite safe, I'll just find a route on Google Maps and just go for a run, and I find it a really nice way to explore and get my bearings. And then I also pack my swimsuit, and if there's any way you can swim, I'll always do a few laps. And I also have a travel yoga mat, which I think is probably my favorite thing to, like one of my best buys for traveling. It folds up small, and it means that you can do yoga wherever you are, anywhere you're staying, just for half an hour even. So I'll just get up a YouTube yoga video and just do a routine. And I find that really, really helpful, especially if I'm really frazzled from lots of traveling or jet lagged. Just a bit of yoga can really, really help you feel better. So I'm definitely not as good, but I think taking your kit with you and finding ways that you can kind of just get out and get a little bit of exercise in are really, really useful when you're traveling, for sure.
What have you got coming up sort of for the remaining part of the year?
So I've just come back from months of traveling. I feel like I haven't been at home at all. I've been in Alaska and then Italy, and I've just got back from Switzerland. So I'm actually now going to have a few weeks at home, which I'm really happy about. So I'm going to do boring things like wash all my clothes and I've actually got a lot of work to catch up with, so it's going to be a bit of a quieter few weeks. But I'm also planning lots of UK adventures now, which, as I said, is secretly my favourite. So I'm going to head to Scotland and I think do some camping and hiking, because I think Scotland in the autumn is just the best. It's just lovely. So now that kind of September's looming, I'm going to head up to Scotland again and kind of get back on on keeping fit and get lots of wild swims in while it's still lovely weather, because it is a pleasure when it's warm weather to get in. It's much nicer getting in the sea. Yeah, so I always have a busy schedule, but I just really like to make sure I kind of block out days where I know I can get outdoors, because I think otherwise life can just get so busy and you don't get that time. So making that time for yourself is important.
Yeah. Well, can you tell us more about what you were doing in Alaska?
Yeah, for sure. So Alaska, I was there for 2 weeks, and I was hiking and camping around, and stayed in a mix of just normal campsites, and they have a lot of campsites that are just really kind of like wilderness spots where you can camp. And Alaska is just amazing because it really is. It's the wild. It's incredible because there's a tiny population of people living in a tiny kind of corner of it, and the rest is just absolute total wilderness. It's an amazing place. So I was really, really astonished by just to kind of see it, and did a lot of hiking trails, which are gorgeous, although you do have to watch out for bears and moose, which was quite interesting experience. And I just did tons of hikes. There's all these glaciers you can hike up to. Did some cycling, some kayaking, just getting out and exploring. And it's one of those places that I was really sad to leave. It was a real amazing place to explore.
Was this a holiday, or was this like a paid like work trip?
This was a work trip, yeah. So I'm going to be writing an article about just kind of exploring Alaska, hiking and camping, and getting out in the national parks. So most of my travels are for work, and actually the travels where I kind of go for myself, I quite often do very little. Kind of end up just reading books and relaxing, or going on more gentle walks, because my travel trips are often quite busy and really jam-packed itineraries, which I love, but they can be pretty knackering. So I love my travels, but I do also love coming home and having a break.
Oh, absolutely. Right, Sian, we're going to mix things up now. I'm going to be asking you some quick fire questions. My questions may be quick, but your answers don't have to be quick. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you a morning person or evening person?
Oh, probably evening.
What time do you go to bed?
About 10, but I feel like kind of afternoon is when I feel I'm not very good in the mornings. I'm quite bleary.
So do you set an alarm, or do you wake up naturally?
I do. I probably wake up at probably about 8 naturally, and then I am fine. But if you try and wake me up at 6 and don't give me coffee, I'm not a very chatty person.
Got you. Well, my next question was going to be tea or coffee, but you've already answered that. So you're a coffee
Absolutely
person.
Coffee. Yeah, for sure.
What book are you reading at the moment?
Oh, at the moment I'm reading Kim by Rudyard Kipling, which I've been meaning to read for ages. And I read a lot, and I actually have a thing where I'll read a kind of a fun book, and then I'll read a more serious classic. So I tend to switch. So at the moment I'm on my classic, which is, it's a lovely book actually. It's about just about India, and it's an incredible description of these gorgeous landscapes. And so I'm really enjoying that.
Do you have a favourite movie?
I really love Stand By Me. Have you ever seen that?
No. What's that one about?
It's really, really charming. It's about 4 young boys in kind of just the middle of nowhere in America, small town America, who go off on a hike, and it's a long story, but it's a really, really wonderful film. It's a beautiful, again, it's beautiful wild America, and it's all about their friendship. And it's my mum's favorite movie, and it's probably mine too. So it's not like a hugely outdoorsy movie, but it is about kind of hiking and camping and exploring. And it's really sweet. So yeah, I think you'd really like it.
What about music? Do you have like a favourite genre or type of music that you listen to?
Yeah, I'm really into folk. I really love folk music, which is something, I think that's a bit of a Marmite kind of music. I'm a big fan of things like folk festivals. So kind of stuff like Seth Lakeman, Johnny Flynn, Laura Marling. I really love all of that. And then kind of also more like classic English folk. And yeah, there's some gorgeous festivals in the UK you can go to. I think festivals are a really nice way to combine, a bit of culture and that kind of outdoors lifestyle. So I like those in the summer too.
And what about food? What's like your favourite food to eat normally, and what's your favourite food to eat when you're out sort of hiking or camping or out, outdoors living your best life?
Oh, well, I've tried to go veggie. I'm still eating fish, but just I've tried to cut up meat recently. So at the moment I'm really into like nice vegetables, and I think if I'm at home I tend to just make something like, it's a bit boring, but something like veggie pasta. And I do secretly love chocolate. I'm just slightly obsessed. And when I'm hiking, I really like making my own trail mix. That's really fun. And actually, what I always take hiking, it's more of a drink than food, is I always have proper coffee. That's like my one thing. Even if I'm just taking everything else is really basic, or I'm eating ration packs, I'll always have a way of making proper coffee. It's like my little comfort thing when I'm camping.
I think this next question could be quite interesting because I know you do write kit reviews for the Girl Outdoors. Do you have a favourite piece of kit or favourite piece of gear, or what are you loving at the moment?
Oh, yeah. Well, I actually have a few bits of gear that I've had for years and years and years that I just absolutely love. And one is my pair of Scarpa Peak hiking boots. And they're quite expensive. They're over £100. But I actually just bought a new pair of myself because I love them so much. They're so comfortable. They're waterproof. They've got really bouncy soles. I've been up so many mountains in them. So I love them. And I think with hiking boots, you've got to find a brand that fits your feet well. But once you do, I do really recommend buying a few pairs because you don't know if they're going to make them forever. And I also have a North Face backpack that I've had for so many years. And I don't even know what color it was originally, but it just does the job. They're really tough and worth the investment. And I always think of those two as kind of my long-term favorite bits of kit. And I've also just reviewed a Haglof's waterproof jacket, which I think is absolutely brilliant. So that's my new favorite. It's Haglof waterproof. So really waterproof, really comfortable, really nicely, they fit really well. So that's another top tip.
Are you a mountains person or a beach person?
Oh, that's such a hard question. I think it has to be mountains.
What do you do for rest and relaxation?
So yoga, reading, what else? I could do a bit of knitting in the winter. Yeah, those are probably my three. Nice glass of wine.
Red or white or rosé?
Oh, red, definitely.
Do you have like a mantra or a quote that you live your life by, or words that have really sort of inspired you?
Well, I have one. I have two. Can I have two?
You can have two, absolutely.
So there's one which I believe was Lady Blessington, and she said, "There's no cosmetic for beauty like happiness." And I always think that's really, really true. And I think, especially as women, there's quite a lot of pressure to look or be a certain way. And I just think if you're happy and you're doing what you love, you will look and feel happy. And I think that's just the most important thing. And the other one I like is I'm not 100% sure that it is John A. Shedd who said it, but I think it's attributed to him the most. But it's a ship in harbour is safe, but that's not what ships are for. And I think that's so lovely because it's that idea that you only have one life and you only have one body, and you could stay at home and be safe. But if there's things you really you'd love to do, and you're itching to get outside and you want to achieve things and push yourself, you've got to go for it because there's so much out there and there's such an exciting world on your doorstep. So you've got to just kind of go out and live life as much as you want and, live a wild life. So those are probably my two that I think of if I'm feeling a bit rubbish and I don't feel like going on a hike.
What's on your bucket list? What are the challenges or adventures that you'd like to do, but maybe you haven't done yet, or you feel that they're a little bit intimidating at the moment?
Sure. I'm scared all the time. I think people always think I must be really confident, but I actually think I'm quite afraid of lots of things. I'm afraid of the dark. I'm not very good. But I always think, even if you feel that kind of thing of being fearless, I think is rubbish, really. I think you just have to feel the fear and just carry on and do it scared. So I'm always kind of looking for new challenges, and I love trying new things. I've tried a lot of what I've always wanted to do. I'd like to do some more traveling in South America, and I would like to do more wild camping and multi-day trips on my own, because I've done hikes on my own and I've camped on my own, but I just like to do maybe even like a week where I went hiking, even something like a coast path, and took my tent and just had some time on my own and worked again on that confidence of being alone. Because I've done stuff like I stayed in a bothy last year, I think for the first time on my own, and it is quite scary doing stuff like that. I think especially if you're a woman, you've kind of sadly had that kind of message so many times that these things are dangerous. And I think getting over that and finding confidence doing stuff alone is something I still need to work at. So more camping and hiking by myself, I think is probably my next challenge.
Yeah. And Sian, what advice and tips would you give for women and girls listening to inspire them to be, I'm trying to link it to like the wild girls guys. I was going to say to be more wild, but what advice would you leave for women and girls who want to spend more time outdoors? They want to get outdoors. They want to have more adventure travel in their life.
Yeah, I think Write down a list of things that you would love to do, but because you truly think they'll make you happy, not because you think you have to do anything gnarly or difficult. Write down things you'd love to do more of, or that make you happy. And then write down the first step to trying those things. So, oh, I'd really love to try wild camping. Okay, well, could you go wild camping this weekend somewhere local just for a night? Or I'd really love to go surfing. Well, maybe you could find a surf course for a weekend and sign up for it, or find somewhere that does a beginner lesson that you could do next time you're on holiday. Just write down that list and then just see if you can start ticking them off and fitting them into your life. And I think, yeah, making time for the outdoors and for wild places is really important. Just blocking that time off in your busy life is important too. And remembering that even if you don't feel like maybe you have friends who want to go out and do these things with you, there's amazing communities you can join. There's even things like Facebook groups. There's courses, there's loads and loads of ways you can try those things, and there are loads of like-minded people, and you don't need to be a pro and you don't need to be mega sporty. You can get out and you can do them. And I think, yeah, just taking that first step and working out what you'd love to do more of, and then just getting out and doing it. I know it's easier said than done, but I think it's so important, and it's just such a good way to feel happy, I think, in increasingly quite stressful, busy lives that we lead. Finding a bit of time to be in the wild is just such an important thing to do for yourself.
Thank you, Sian.
No problem.
And where's the best place that people can find more information about you and follow your blog and read your reviews and active guides and travel information? So
best is probably my blog, thegirloutdoors.co.uk, and my Instagram, which is @SianAnnaLewis. And I share all my kind of articles and new things that are going on there. And if you'd like to buy my book, you can find it on Amazon, The Girl Outdoors. And it's a nice place to start if you're feeling like you need a bit of a helping hand to kind of getting outdoors, traveling and trying new sports and activities.
Sian, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast to share more about your journey and the girl outdoors, and just inspiring us all with your travel and adventure stories.
Thank you for having me.
Hey Tribe, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Sian. What an absolute legend. So as always, everything that we've discussed today is available in the show notes at toughgirlchallenges.com. So please do go and check it out. And actually a couple of months ago, or it might have actually been when her book came out, I actually gave away a copy of Sian's book as a prize for patrons. So what I do with patrons who are the financial supporters of the podcast, at the end of every single month, there is a patrons prize draw, and every single patron from $2 to $25 gets their name put in that draw automatically, and then prizes are won at the end of the month and get sent out to you wherever you are in the world. And so a massive thank you to everybody who has signed up as a patron, who is supporting me financially and supporting the mission of the Tough Girl podcast. I just want to take a moment just to say a couple of really, really big thank yous. I want to say a massive thank you to Ellen Piercy, Deborah Holt, Katja Lunaire, Sarah Bright, Tara Geiger, and Zoe Langley-Watham. I really do appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much. Like, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, what you are doing is incredible, and you are helping me to increase the amount of female role models out there. You're allowing me to share these amazing stories, which in turn allows more women to hear them, to get inspired, and to go out there and to live a life with more adventure in their life. Just want to share something else as well. So we talked about communities, and I have the closed Facebook group, the Tough Girl Tribe, which is for the patrons, the female patrons who support the podcast. It's a fantastic environment, very supportive, very, very encouraging. Also just want to mention another community. This is especially if you are UK based, then please do go check out the Adventure Queens, and their website is adventurequeens.co.uk. I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about it. So Anna McNuff and Emma Framps are the founders of Adventure Queens. It's a UK-based, not-for-profit women's adventure community set up with the aim of delicately smashing down the barriers that prevent women from heading off on adventures. They provide practical information, tips, and advice on all things wild camping and the great outdoors. So little by little, bit by bit, Adventure Queens is helping women from the UK and beyond have the confidence to get out there and get wild. So there's lots of these organisations about. So it's about finding that community that works well with you. And by the way, it's totally okay to be a member of the Adventure Queens and to be a member of the Tough Girl tribe. There is no competition at all. It's all about collaboration. It's all about encouragement. It's all about finding your tribe and your community. So I just want to make sure that you are aware that that is out there. They do lots of wild camping events, and they also run like an Adventure Queens grant as well. That's a yearly thing. So please do go check out adventurequeens.co.uk. Again, if you're completely new to the Tough Girl podcast, then please do go check out toughgirlchallenges.com, where you can find more information about me, my background, the different challenges and adventures that I've done, and the work that I'm doing in this space to increase the amount of female role models out there. It's something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and I just want to say a big thank you again to all my amazing patrons. Big hugs, big kisses from the bottom of my heart. If you haven't signed up as a patron yet, please do go visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Now, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, have an awesome day. Give it 110%. Get after it and go for it. Please believe in yourself. Believe in yourself, because I believe in you. You can do it. All right, take care, and I'll be back with you next Tuesday for another awesome episode of the Tough Girl Podcast. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.